Hi guys, Scott here with Stay Wild TV. Today's video is all going to be about feather sticks. If you've seen my previous video on how to light feather sticks, if you haven't, then I will leave a link to it somewhere. But yeah, feather sticks. Why do feather sticks? Feather sticks is not only a good way of practicing your knife skills, it is also a way of making kindling. Now this isn't so much tinder as it is fine kindling, but you can light this with a spark from a ferrocerium rod. So, and if you have char cloth, I've seen videos of people lighting it with traditional flint and steel, but effectively they're using the heat from a big bundle of char cloth to ignite these. So we're going to do, this is a hazel one that I've done before. It's not ideal, it's quite a short piece of wood. There are a couple of knots in it, but this will still function. And that's the whole point, in my opinion, when it comes to feather sticking. I mean, some people, especially people that do it all the time and go to trade shows and do it, it is a very nice skill and you can get very, very good at it. If you have a really long, straight piece of wood that's got no knots in it, you can make some really beautiful feathers. But in nature, the chances of finding some really nice pieces of wood without knots in it is incredibly difficult. So functional is where I go for, and if you can make some really nice looking feather sticks, then go for it. So today we're just going to be feather sticking a piece of split sweet chestnut. Now this has a couple of small knots in it. We'll try a couple of different sides and see which side feathers up the nicest. And then just to show that you can feather other things, we'll be feathering up this piece of spruce. It's just a piece of spruce limb. And the problem with spruce is they, especially the limbs, you have lots of different little branches that come off it, which means it's going to be very hard to feather, but it's not impossible. And again, you can make this functional. So that's what we're going for. It's something designed to be burnt. So I'm not overly worried if it looks pretty, so long as it can catch a spark from a ferrocerium rod, then it's a good feather stick in my opinion. So just put the knife on. So when it comes to feather sticking, you want a really nice sharp knife. This helps with feather sticks immensely, and blades with a continuous curvature like this one do lend themselves really well to feather sticking, although you can do it with any knife providing you practice enough. I wouldn't recommend trying to use a big knife or a machete to feather stick. You can feather stick with them, but because of the angle of the bevel, you end up having, instead of being able to slide down really close to the piece of wood and get really fine shavings, you end up having to do really high angles to get that bevel angle of the blade to slide down. So you'll get some coarser material off it. But if you're using something that contains volatile oils, like a pine and a bit of fat wood, that doesn't matter so much because the wood itself is impregnated with accelerant. So the way I traditionally do it is I put it on a work surface, get the knife in a front hand grip, start at the top, and then just gradually slide down. And at the start I'm not actually trying to get feathers. All I'm doing is producing the platform that will produce the curls. Now this side is producing some pretty nice fine curls. Again, ideally you want to be starting up a lot higher, but I've got a knot here, and again I've got one further up, so this is about as high up as I can go. As you notice, my knife blade is currently facing down, which means the curls are all going off this way. If I raise my knife up and do it, the curls will want to go the opposite direction. As you can see, they are trying to shoot off this way if you angle it up. And if you go straight down, they will come into the middle. The whole point of feather sticks is not always just about the feathers themselves. You have to reduce the thickness of this piece of wood here, because having multiple feather sticks help, but as you can see, as I've done in this one, instead of being this thick, with it being this thick, once you ignite these curls here and turn it upside down, you know, you should be able to start a fire with a single feather stick. That's the whole point. Ideally have a minimum of 4, because that just increases your chances, but when you flick this over, you want these curls here, once they're ignited, to generate enough heat to ignite this piece of wood. If it's as fat as this is here or here, then it's not going to generate anywhere near enough heat to combust this piece of wood, and therefore your fire is going to go out. So that's what we're aiming for. We're aiming to get this piece of wood down as thin as we possibly can without snapping it. Again, if you snap it, it doesn't matter, it will still work. The same with all these curls that are falling off. Not the end of the world, you just collect those up, add them to your tinder bundle. So this is good, especially in a woodland like this. This is a lovely ancient woodland, but there is not a lot of natural tinder around at the moment. I've got plenty of wood for twig bundles, but other than a few bits of dead dry bracken and some dry grass, there is not an awful lot of suitable tinder materials. There's not a lot of birch around here at all. I do have some close to my house, so I have to collect it and bring it in. So feather sticks is a great alternative for use in this woodland, especially in this part of the woodland that I can use. Another good thing is if it's wet and everything around you is wet, you're getting down to the heartwood, which is going to be dry, providing that it's dead standing. So I'll just keep going. You know, you want a good mixture of fine and coarse. Caught on the knot there. Ideally you want to go down a bit further than I have here, in terms of your stroke, so you can get as much wood, because I'm leaving a lot of wood at this end. It's just wasting energy. You know, you can go from really fine I am rushing this slightly because I'm trying to do it for a video. I don't want to do it too long for you guys, as there's plenty of other feather stick videos, but one of my subscribers asked me to do this, as I did another video on lighting feather sticks with a ferrocerium rod. You can also use these with fire dogs if you don't have quite enough to restart your campfire in the morning. You know, you're starting to get a lot of curls there, but again, because I'm having to start here because of that knot, it's not as ideal as it could be. And if you want some really fine curls, turn your knife over and use your spine. Get some finer shavings in there. So that is effectively a feather stick, a functional feather stick. It's not a perfect example of a feather stick, but it is an example of a functional feather stick from a split piece of wood. And now we're going to go with the dead spruce limb. Now all we're going to do is simply take the bark off, try and get past this knot. If we can't, then we'll move this back round to this side. We will go down here, but we'll have to stop at that knot down the bottom. Just to prove that you can. You know, ideally just take the bark off. Another technique for doing feathers, so you've obviously seen the one where you go down, is to hold your workpiece in your knife. You can pull your workpiece across. I find this method gives you much finer curls, but I find I lose more that way. Another thing you can do you can see it, I'll go back a little bit, is to sit down, get into a nice power stance, put your knife on your knee and do the same. Pull the feather stick back to you and you get curls that way. Like I said, doing it this way, I find you get much finer curls, but I find I can control it a lot easier that method there, but I have been practicing that method a lot more than this method here. So another thing I think is worth mentioning when it comes to feather sticks is not necessarily about pushing down, so it's almost about putting more pressure, pushing your knife against the piece of wood than it is the downward pressure. And knives, funny enough, are not actually designed to just push through, they are designed for a slicing motion. So doing it that way, you are getting that lovely slice motion that really lends itself to these continuous curvature blades. So that's why you're getting the better curls. There's a bit of a knot there, just work past that. Bit of a knot there, but again, you know, you're going to find knots in a piece of wood like this. And you know, you can keep going round. So there, you know, that's feathers up. Again, this would not be great. You could go all the way around, start up a bit higher, but because of the small knots and branch nodules, if you use that in combination with these, you've got your fire. Right guys, thanks for watching. I am trying to grow my channel, so please consider subscribing, hit the